we've been saying from day one, this is going to be a long war because we realize there is no quick fix to a terrorist organization that has deeply embedded itself over the last 16 years as a governing authority.
So are we talking weeks and months of this level of intensity of bombardment? Weeks, months? What do we mean by long war?
That's a good question. The level of intensity will be determined by the achievements on the battleground.
Communication in Gaza is down again, and the Israeli army says it's hit 450 targets over the last day. Aid groups say hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in the coastal enclave are now struggling to access drinking water. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner is a spokesperson for the IDF. We can speak to him now. Good morning to you, Peter.
Morning, Steve.
Very good, thank you. The military position seems to be that you've surrounded Gaza City, this idea of splitting the strip in half. What does that mean for the next stage of the war? What's coming?
Steve, we've been focused over the last month now in advancing our operations towards Gaza City, precisely because that is the beating heart of Hamas's terrorist operations. And indeed, that is where we've been focused. And in the last week or so, with the ground efforts that are expanding, I would say every day. And encirclement of Gaza Gaza City means that the pressure will be up on Hamas on their abilities. So it's moving the mission forward in order to achieve our goal of destroying and dismantling Hamas as a governing authority of the Gaza Strip as a terrorist organization.
And how close are you to that? Because that's the key point. You know, there's lots of calls for ceasefires, for pauses. We've now been going on for a month of this war. How close are you to your aim? How many Hamas leaders have you killed? How many remain? What percentage along the route to eliminating Hamas are we on now?
So there are several different components of the dismantlement of Hamas. First of all, it's of the organization itself that governs the Gaza Strip. So it's all of its abilities to rule the Strip, the tools that they use in order to build their terrorist army, the financing. The whole system needs to be dismantled, and that is a long process. And of course, the second component of that would be hunting down and destroying the terrorist infrastructure. So it's the individuals that conducted the strike, the terrorists that planned the attack on 7th of October, and of course, the elements that they're using to conduct more attacks, whether it's the drone capabilities that they have, whether it's the rockets that they keep launching towards Israel, the command and control positions, the tunnel system that they've utilized and built in order to specifically conduct attacks against Israel and manage their operations. So, we've been saying from day one, this is going to be a long war because we realize there is no quick fix to a terrorist organization that has deeply embedded itself over the last 16 years as a governing authority.
So are we talking weeks and months of this level of intensity of bombardment? Weeks, months? What do we mean by long war?
That's a good question. The level of intensity will be determined by the achievements on the battleground. The achievements are advancing every day, where we're engaging tens and hundreds of terrorists in different locations throughout the northern Gaza Strip. But of course, Hamas's operations capabilities are something along the line of 40,000 strong. So it could go on for several weeks.
At this level of intensity.
I don't want to be too deterministic on this because, again, there's so many variables that could change the level and intensity. I would hope that we won't need to, but of course, it also depends on the enemy component that is obviously deeply embedded in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip.
We're all worried, as I'm sure you will be as an Israeli, about escalation in the region. Reports exist that you targeted a car in Lebanon, which ended up containing 3 children and their grandmother who died. What is the IDF's response to that?
We identified terrorist activities in southern Lebanon, in an area where there have been extensive anti-tank guided missiles fired at the IDF. We're aware of the charges, the allegations that there were civilians in this car. We're looking into it. The incident is under review.
And just explain what happens next, because that's really important. People, it's always easy to talk in these things in terms. Words are very easy to talk about collateral damage and things like that, and you're not seeking to target civilians, but then people die, and if they do die, people need to know that you can own up to that. Will you? When will this review be complete? When will we be able to say whether or not you wrongly killed this family?
This is that we need to differentiate, obviously, between the northern and southern fronts, and there's lots of things that are happening on the ground as we speak. The challenges of warfare, and in an area where anti-tank guided missiles, and as those we struck that vehicle yesterday, we had bombardments in Kiryat Shmona, in a town in northern Israel. So there's this fog of war that needs to be cleared up before we can give a clear answer on this. I hope we'll have an answer soon. The reality is one where, Hezbollah, their strings are being pulled by Iran in order to try to divert our attention from the south to the north. And they've conducted extensive strikes that in themselves, if that was just happening and there was no war going on in Gaza, in themselves we would probably be at war with Hezbollah, because of the amount of exchanges that have just in the last month have happened on that border.
Yeah.
So we have to realize that we are trying to mitigate and prevent an escalation on the north, where there's all the reasons to actually engage. Hezbollah have conducted extensive rocket fire, anti-tank guided missiles, sniper fire, drone attacks. All of these have happened in the last month, and we are trying to evacuate the people from Kiryat Shmona. Somebody was killed, a civilian was killed yesterday in Kiryat Shmona. But despite the fact that we've called for evacuation and evacuated the vast majority, some 25,000, and all of the towns in a 5-kilometer radius have been evacuated in order to get people out of harm's way, out of Hezbollah's reach. We are strong in our defensive capabilities. We're conducting strikes specifically and trying to preempt these types of attacks against us before they happen. Most of the time we are successful.
Okay.
Only some of the time they are successful in hitting Israel.
Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, thank you for joining us.
Good day.
He's the spokesperson for the IDF. They're saying if there wasn't a war in Gaza, there might well be a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon.